Good morning, everyone. It's November the 21st, 2023. As you can see with Julie, the last few days, things have been very hectic. And what do we talk about? Every time we talk about something else crops up. But I did want to touch more on the hospice care today, and what I'm seeing with certainly one of the most vulnerable people of all. And because I understand it's being run out of the mission, which is fine, and it's up on the top floor, but it's not a good situation in the fact that we've got everybody mixing with everybody else at the same time. And I want to start with what it is to be compassionate. And for me, being compassionate and caring started when I was a young child. It was installed in me as a child. I want to give you an example of it. This is how I was taught. And when I was around 4 to 5 years old, we had a little town called Lanark in the Ottawa Valley here. There was a terrible fire in the middle of the night. They lost the whole entire middle section, the whole inner, most of the town in the fire. And it just was burnt right to the ground. They only had a few buildings left standing. And of course it was a shock to everyone. But everyone at that time got together, put things together. They only fled within their night clothes, so they didn't have anything, period. They were lucky to make it out alive, and I don't think there was any fatalities. But it was horrible, because I can remember being a child, my parents finding this out along with everyone else. We loaded up our cars and our vehicles. And I can remember our car. I was in the back seat, and there was barely enough room for me because most of my toys and other things were packed in beside me. My mother was in the front seat with my father on the bench seat, and there was stuff in between her and my dad on her lap. And we had a small trailer, and we were pulling stuff as well, full, as well as the roof rack on top of the car was full. So we were bringing things in that some of the neighbors couldn't bring in either. So we were just piling everything. And then we got to the highway and the turnoff down to Lanark. And I remember sitting there for what seemed like an eternity, where the road turned, and you had the church at the end of the highway and the road down into Lanark. And I can remember seeing how we slowly inched our way towards that church to make the turn. And it was just packed for miles on both sides of the highway. We had the highway blocked because everyone, farmers, people from Ottawa, other villages, we all came together to help the little town of Lanark because they had absolutely nothing left. And then driving into Lanark, I remember seeing the still smoldering ruins, and all there was left was basically cement steps where buildings and houses had been. And we got in, and I was walking around, and I had a little doll in my hand, one of my dolls that I was ready to give away. And I wasn't too far from my mother, but there was this little girl, and she was sitting on what was left of her house. It was the cement steps, and she was sitting on the cement steps, and she actually had a doll in her hands that was half burnt, and she was sitting there, and she was just really down, and she was crying, and nobody was really paying attention to her. So I went up to her, and I looked at her, and I cheerfully said, my dolly needs a new mommy. Would you like to look after my doll and be her new mommy? And she just looked at me, and she cried, and she looked at her doll. It was half burnt. And, of course, I was just learning about life and death at that time, so I thought maybe I can help her out. And for some reason, I just turned around, and I said to her, maybe what we need to do is bury your dolly, and then maybe you can be Sally's new mummy. She needs a new mummy. And she looked at me, and we went over to the corner. She followed me. I said, well, come with me. She followed me, not happily, but she followed me. So I started digging. I found a place, tried to start digging with my hands in the earth. And next thing I know, some of the adults said, well, what are you doing? And I'm saying, well, I'm trying to bury her doll, and then she's going to be my Sally's new mummy. And they're looking at me like, what are you doing exactly? And then someone got the brilliant idea, and they got everybody around, got shovels, and what they did was they started digging a big pit. And they turned it around, and everyone, come and gather all the burnt toys that we can find, and we'll have a ceremony here. So I had the priests and the reverends, and everyone came together. And this is what was so beautiful. And then we buried them, and then we were able to hand out the toys. The children were happy because we didn't have trauma teams or anything back like that. But it was suddenly, whoops, no matter how hard things were, we need to look after the children right away. But she was so happy to get my doll and be Sally's new mummy at the time. So it starts very young on this trip of compassion over many years that I've been taking down throughout my lifetime. But the problem with the compassion is where we are today in 2023. It's these people who come in, and these drug dealers and these druggies, and they'll do anything for money, and they'll start taking advantage even of us if we're not careful. And this is where it's really, really horrible. But back to the hospice care again, and like I said, even as a teenager, I was a candy striper in St. Vincent's Hospital. So, helping patients and looking after patients and volunteering to things. So it was a long road to where I am today. But this is where I think is just so horrible today, is to see all these patients up on the top of the mission, that they can't even come down and have a place of their own, whether it be, say, maybe a couple of hours that they could have for a room, or just go to the chapel even for a couple of hours and have some staff there and do things and have cooperation. And even on their floor, it seems to be that needs to be secured with these people, because they are allowed to come and go, but when they come in, they take advantage of them, and they take their cigarettes, and they start taking things, and seems to be nobody there to regulate the situation. And the same thing with this little courtyard that we were talking about, Julie and I, because I remember people sitting in there enjoying themselves years ago in this court, pardon me, little court place, whatever you want to call it. I'm really a little bogged up today. It's not a courtroom, that's for sure. But it might as well be, because we're really judging people pretty harshly and not protecting them in the way we should. So maybe we should have a judge there presiding over the proceedings to make sure that our most vulnerable are protected. But, it could be very easily security monitored. People could be designated. They know who the visitor is. They have some sort of a pass to come in. If they can have staff there monitoring as well. If they see that the patient's being harassed, they can step in. Very much run like the schools run it, because when we go out for recess, we have monitors. The teachers are out there to monitor the situation. So we need to do things like that so that they're safe from people. They can still be mingling with people, but they can be safe with people. So I just wanted to not step on it, but stress a little bit of what's going on today. I know I'm very tired today, so must excuse me. But it's been very, very long. It's been very draining. I know, even for all the volunteers, and today we're all burning out. I see it all the time where people are having to take a break. So I understand where everyone's coming from, but there's ways of showing compassion and ways of being able to protect other people at the same time. And we seem to have gotten away from being both compassionate and both being able to protect people. So we really need to step up and start doing what we need to do. So there's so much, and I've got definitely other ideas, but we must protect our most vulnerable, because look what happened. And I'm just going to refer to, again, the nursing homes during the pandemic. Look at how many, they were understaffed, there was no one there, people died alone. We lost so many seniors. And that was a horrible way to go. So we really, really need to step up and start using our noggins up here again, if you want to put it that way. That would be my mother said, well, why aren't you using your noggin up here today? So we really need to come together and be one, look after our most vulnerable. And again, take care, have a nice day, and we'll see you soon, and bye-bye.